In this lesson, we'll begin building the wings of our jet. So let's use some of the same techniques. So we'll start with some curves. Let's go ahead and create a NURBS primitive circle. Okay, let's go into the side view, and I want to make sure to scale it up here, and let's actually rotate it. And we want to rotate it in one angle, in the Z here, and we'll rotate it 90 degrees. All right, and you can kind of see the base of the wing here, this sort of shape here. So this is what we want to create a shape for. So I'm just going to right click and go to Control Vertex, and then I'm going to use these points in this particular view to shape our wing. So I'll just grab some of these points, kind of move them up and over. Let's take this one all the way to the back. Have these be right at the back side here. Okay. So I want to make sort of a wing shape. I want to have a little bit of an unusual shape on the front of the wing. I want it to be a bit sharper and have sort of a sharp line that comes down. And so we'll go ahead and just bring in something like that. And then we can bring these points up in here to create the actual shape of the wing itself. So as I pull this point forward, you can see it creates a little bit of a kind of a sharper line, which is what I want. And same thing up here. All right. Now at this point we could project this onto the surface, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it as is. I'm going to create one more point right in here. So let's go ahead and insert knot. And then I'm going to use that point to do a little bit more shaping. Kind of bring this up and in a little bit. And let's add one more knot right down here. I'll insert a knot there. Okay. So once we have the base, let's go ahead and pull it out from the surface of the jet. So kind of out to the side. And then let's create a couple of copies. So Control D to duplicate. Control D to duplicate again. Now this copy that should be up against the plane, let's go ahead and move it up to the plane. And then rather than projecting down, I'm just going to manually take these points and move them towards the surface until that curve is right outside, right on top of that plane. So kind of moving it in and just moving it in one axis only. And you can see you'll have to go back and forth a little bit. Let's take these forward a little. Take this one back a bit. Okay. Same thing here. We'll bring these out a little bit. Okay, so it's kind of right on top of there. Now this one, we can tell from the top and the front view where this one needs to be. Same goes for the one on the end. So looking at the top view here, we can select this one and we can kind of scale it down a little bit until it's kind of the right size here. And we can also come in from the front and move it down a little bit, maybe rotate it a bit. Okay, so it's kind of something like that. Now this one on the end, we want it to be a lot smaller, so we'll go ahead and scale this down and move it, and we just match it up with the end here. Let's scale this down a little bit more, and then we want to move this one down and actually rotate it a little bit to match up with our art. All right. And so now we need to actually create the geometry between these. So if you remember, we're going to use a loft. So we'll select one, then the next, then the next. Go to Surfaces, Loft, and that will create our geometry between these. Now you can see we haven't created any resolution in between here. So if we actually select these again in order and go into Loft, we can change our section spans to 2. and loft, and now we get a span in between there, which gives us a little bit more of an even shape, or an even looking shape. Now this space on the end where this is open, we can take this curve that we have here, and we can go to surfaces, and let's just do a planar, and that will just create a trim, a surface that will is just inside, basically a flat surface inside of that curve. So if we turn off our curves, you can see we get a shape on the end there. All right. Now if you want to take this curve on the end and kind of smooth it out a little bit, let me turn on our curves. If we want to take this curve and kind of smooth it out so it's not quite so sharp there, you can do that. Let me just move along the object here, and I can kind of smooth that out a little bit on the end. Okay, so it's not quite as sharp. It's a little bit more soft on the end. And you can do the same thing here if you wanted to kind of smooth that out in the middle. Okay, and again, if the curve is not quite in the right spot, you can move it down. We may need to kind of scale this down a little bit. But you can see because of the history, all of the surfaces update. So once we've got a wing, we want to add a little bit of detail to the wing to give it a little bit more interest. And so we can do that by inserting isoparms and then modifying the shape. So we'll take a look at how we can do that in the next lesson.